Welcome back to Cheddar News, everyone. The 2020 election season is in our rearview mirror, but even now, 6 months later, voting legislation continues to be a hot topic in Washington. U.S. Congresswoman Deborah Ross from North Carolina, who also serves as the vice chair of the House Judiciary Subcommittee on the Constitution, Civil Rights and Civil Liberties, penned an op-ed on H.R. 1 or the For the People Act regarding expanding voting rights. Congresswoman Deborah Ross joins me now. Congresswoman, good to have you on the show this afternoon. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know you've looked into this, studied the data. What does the data show that you've seen that supports the For the People Act?
Well, the most important thing is that when people have more convenient ways to vote, they vote, regardless of political party. And so the op-ed that I wrote told the North Carolina story, where we had the longest voting period in the country with all the different ways of voting. So we had no excuse absentee voting by mail. We had same-day voter registration at early voting sites. We had early voting sites that were open. And then, of course, you could vote on Election Day. And we had record turnout from both parties. We had no evidence of any irregularities. And Donald Trump won. And he said everything was fine in North Carolina, presumably because he won. But it's just evidence that when we make voting easier and more accessible, more people vote, and they can do it without any difficulty, and then we can all accept the outcome of the election.
Congresswoman, in your op-ed, I found this to be one of the interesting points. Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, noted that Trump likely would have won that state, a red state, for decades had he not sown distrust in absentee ballots. What is the Republican Party missing here? I mean, that seems to be just the evidence that you would need to support this.
I think that the Republican Party is afraid of high voter turnout. And because they think that if more people vote, there will be more people who vote against Republicans. That has not been the North Carolina experience. It was the experience when Barack Obama won. And he won by a very, very narrow margin. President Trump won by more in North Carolina than Barack Obama won by. And so it's not how easy we make it to vote or how convenient we make it to vote. It's about which candidate can energize the electorate. And North Carolina is a very purple state, and we've had experiences where a candidate like Barack Obama energized the electorate, and we've had experiences where a candidate like Donald Trump energized the electorate. But the point is that we have made it convenient to vote, and people have used all these methods with no problem. Absolutely no problem. So we need to have voting systems and voting laws that are for the people and not for the politicians.
What is the fate of the For the People Act in Washington?
Well, it passed the House, and the Senate tried to bring it up for a vote. And because of the filibuster, they do not have the votes to get it passed. So they are going to have to look at making changes or maybe rolling it in with some of the other voting rights bills that we're going to be bringing forth. So the House is going to bring forth the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, which repairs the Voting Rights Act from Supreme Court decisions. And so there will be opportunities for the Senate to look at this again.
Now, fast forward 3 years from now, do you anticipate that there will be any major federal changes to voting once Biden presumably does run for re-election?
I hope that there will, that protect the voters. Again, everything that we should do should be about the voters and making it easier for them to vote, making it more convenient. We should want 100% voter turnout because that shows the investment in our democracy. It shows citizen engagement. It shows that candidates have gotten people excited about voting. And that should be our goal, rather than doubting the ability of citizens to be able to cast their ballots in a legal way, which is really a big lie. We need to have faith in our voters and make it easier and more convenient for them to vote.
Let me ask you this, Congresswoman. Infrastructure, a $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure deal, still not passed in Washington. What are the conversations happening in the hallways in D.C. about the fate of this bill?
Well, there's a real desire in D.C. to have infrastructure be bipartisan. And traditionally, it has been bipartisan. And so that is what the Senate is trying to put together. We do know that if that fails, there are lots of different ways that the Democrats can get infrastructure passed and funded all by ourselves. But we would like to do this in a way that demonstrates to the American people that we are together, we are unified, and we understand the needs of our roads and bridges, water and sewer systems, electricity grid, the needs for broadband. And we want to all recognize that when we invest in infrastructure, we are creating jobs in the United States that cannot be outsourced. And these are jobs for everybody from the PhD who designs that bridge to the person who paves the road. And that is why infrastructure is such an important issue to do in a bipartisan way. But if we can't,
Congresswoman,
we'll go it alone.
So let's say the infrastructure plan passes, $1 trillion. People will need to be hired, presumably, to build these new roads and bridges, to make repairs, you name it. But we still see labor shortages across this country. How do you remedy that?
Well, once the pandemic eases more, and we're hoping that everybody gets vaccinated and that happens, more and more people will get back to work. The other thing is that we have ways of training people for these jobs. You know, the people who do infrastructure, build our roads, do these designs, they have some of the best training programs. And what we're seeing right now in our economy is we're seeing a shift to better paying jobs. And when people see that they can get a better paying job on a project that's really meaningful to them, that's the kind of job they want to get. And at the same time, they're building things that are crucial for our 21st century economy. So we're having a bumpy return to work, largely because of the pandemic. But I think as things ease from a health perspective, lots of people are going to want to get back to work. All of our college graduates are going to want to get jobs, folks in community colleges, and then people who just have a high school degree are going to be doing a lot of these infrastructure jobs, and they're good paying jobs.
Congresswoman, my last question to you, simply because of timing here, we see the rapidly spreading and highly contagious Delta variant leading to higher cases across this country. Are you and your colleagues taking extra precautions? If so, what are they as the Delta variant spreads?
Well, the number one precaution against the Delta variant is getting vaccinated. So almost everybody who is getting this Delta variant is somebody who has not been vaccinated. But if you do get it when you're vaccinated, the chances that you'll get seriously ill are very, very low. And so we have got to get people vaccinated. And I think this variant is convincing a lot of the vaccine hesitant folks. We're also starting to wear our masks more, particularly in situations where we're indoors and we do not know whether or not people are vaccinated. And you know, it is always important to wash your hands, to stay at a distance from people, particularly people who may not be vaccinated, and to take precautions. But getting vaccinated is the number one way to combat the Delta variant. So I encourage your viewers to do it. And if they know anyone who is not vaccinated, please, please influence them to protect themselves and protect others.
We certainly see a lot more mask wearing here in New York as well as this variant spreads. Congresswoman, we got to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining. That is U.S. Congresswoman Deborah Ross from North Carolina.